Welcome to Keeping Up with Our Community, a podcast for and about Romeo Community Schools. Each week, we will invite different guests to share insights about some unique aspects of our schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, my name is Mary Ann Brush, and I'm the Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools. It is my pleasure to introduce episode 19 of the Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast. Today's episode will focus on the district's Teachers of the Year for 2023-2024 and explore what excellence in teaching means. I will now turn it over to Jennifer McFarland, Assistant Superintendent of Academic Services, to host this episode, beginning with introducing our guests.
So welcome to our episode, Keeping Up with Our Community. We have some really outstanding teachers at the table today. So we'll start with Mr. Phillips. If you would please introduce yourself, tell us what role you have in our schools, and how long have you been with Romeo?
Right. Yeah. Like I said, my name is John Phillips. I have been with the Romeo schools for 10 years. I'm currently the band director at Romeo High School, and I teach one class over at Romeo Middle School. So that's where I've primarily been currently in Romeo.
Excellent. And you are a marching band, symphony band?
Yeah, we do everything.
Every band.
So marching band, yeah, we have 3 bands at the high school, 3 concert bands at the high school. We also have our marching band. We have our pit orchestra and our jazz band as well.
Yeah, so you played at the musical.
We did, yeah.
Yes, that was outstanding. And you actually played an instrument.
Yep, Mr. Hinkle and I kind of split duties, so you can't have 2 conductors at the last minute. I usually jump in and play one of the instruments to kind of help out.
So you do a lot for our schools, for
Absolutely.
sure. We'll go next to Mrs. Miller. If you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us where you're at and how long you've been with us in Romeo.
Sure. I'm Krista Miller, and I teach first grade at Indian Hills Elementary. This is my 10th year. So same as you,
Nice.
Mr. Phillips.
The decade.
Yes. Yeah. And my kids also all came up through Romeo schools.
Oh.
All 3 are graduated now.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Yes, and I know we have a young Philip in our system as
2 of
well.
them.
2 of them.
Yeah.
Holy moly. A decade. All right, Mazzio, have you been with us 10 years?
I actually have.
Believe it or not. How? I've never connected any of those dots. So, Mrs. Mazzio, why don't you tell us about yourself, what you teach, and we know now that you've been with us for a decade.
My name is Amanda Mazzio. I'm a teacher at Romeo Middle. I work with our English learner population, so students whose families or they themselves use another language at home, and we work on our English language development.
So that's an interesting job to have. So any interesting stories about working with our families?
Oh, I'm sure tons. Many that have been, success stories that you hold dear.
Yeah.
But one thing that I found really endearing lately is one of our newcomers. She started with us just a few months ago, but when she leaves the room, she says happy day as she's working on have a good day and some of those greetings. But I really love this idea of happy day.
I
as a way
need
to
that
wrap
today.
up the hour.
Absolutely. Happy day. I think that's how we'll sign off today.
Yeah.
So we have a music teacher, a first grade teacher, and a language acquisition teacher at the table. You were selected by your colleagues and a representation of levels administratively and teachers at the district level for you to be selected from your building. So tell me when you found out, what went through your mind and what stories maybe that, you thought about, or What came to your mind, Mr. Phillips? I see you smiling, so tell us.
I said I was right in the middle of we had a full school-wide pep assembly.
Oh, that's
going on.
right. Oh, I
So,
forgot.
Of course, I was doing my normal thing. I'm making sure nobody's missing their bus. I'm walking down the aisle really carefully, looking at other kids. Make sure, okay, if you're riding a bus. And then I heard it, I went, what? So it was a really cool moment because my kids were very, very excited. And having that public of an atmosphere was fun.
Yeah, so when I told Mr. Oswald, and he's like, "Oh, I got an idea. You need to come by." And I'm like, "Isn't that the pep assembly?" And he's like, "Yeah, it'll be great." And I'm like, "Okay." But yeah, you certainly were surprised.
And the kids had a good time with it because they know, like, I will praise anybody and celebrate for them, but I'm pretty quiet when it comes to myself.
Very humble.
So they loved the fact I was turning bright red and everything.
You were a little bit, yes. And I kept chasing Mr. Oswald. Here's your certificate. But
it was a lot of fun.
Very exciting for sure. Yeah, once in a lifetime, maybe. You never know. How about Mrs. Mazzio? How were you surprised? I think it might teeter on the breaking Mr. Phillips surprise.
So I found out that I was nominated by our building at our staff meeting. Our principal, Mr. Martz, was reading a description of this mystery person, which once he used the word advocate, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
I saw you. You're kind of looking around going, is it me?
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's a word that often gets thrown around when working with me. But that was when I found out I was nominated for the school.
And you were very surprised and humbled as well.
Oh yes, it was a wonderful surprise, but one that made me a little bit uncomfortable.
Yes. And then what happened, Mrs. Mazzio, later on?
So then I found out that I was selected as one of the outstanding teachers of the year for the county, but I found that out at our middle school Oscars. The sixth grade teachers put on this really awesome event celebrating reading, and students dress up as characters and give speeches, but our theater instructor, Mr. Salamveer, was up being an awesome MC, really engaging the crowd, and kind of started to make this announcement. And they were cheering sixth graders, most of them who've never met me. I work with a handful of sixth graders, but to have all these cheering sixth graders, and my mom came up on stage. She was invited by
Mr. Martz.
Mr. Martz.
Taught with him when he first started teaching.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah. So it was all a big surprise, all a blur, but a wonderful surprise.
And again, made you uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yes. But a very, very great honor. And I know I spoke with a couple of the MISD consultants who read the applications, and they were just so impressed with you. So thank you for representing Romeo as well as our language acquisition programs.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. So let's talk about what makes excellent teaching. So what do you think about when you're creating your classroom culture, and what goes into good teaching practices? Mrs. Miller.
Well, the first thing that I think about is building those relationships with the kids and trying to see each one of them, to really see them, their strengths and the things that are areas of growth, and just to call out that greatness that you see in them. Because even in first grade, kids start to be a little insecure. And when you notice something amazing about them and call it out in front of the class, it just really sets a really good foundation for the whole school year.
Yeah, so building relationships is key. How about you, Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with the relationship building, and I guess coming from a different area where I'm in a class that kids have to sign up for. It's not a requirement by any stretch. I think creating that environment where students feel like, one, they can belong, they can be themselves. They don't have to hide it. And it definitely gets easier as they progress to the upper levels.
Right.
You know, a little bit of that that hesitation they might have when they're younger. Air conditioning there.
Yeah, just keep going.
But as far as that goes, I mean, I think the same thing, creating that environment, it's, it feels like a family. I tease them sometimes that, some days it might be a little more dysfunctional than others, but to really get to know each other, have each other's back, and build those relationships. They feel like they can take risks. They feel like they are just part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that really lends to getting to the academic end of things.
Yeah, I really like that, right? Feeling like they belong, but there's something bigger than them.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing maybe unique, and I'm probably where you're at as well, is getting kids that can shine where they might be struggling elsewhere. But the number of kids that I couldn't even believe, there were kids that I personally wasn't sure I really had the best connection with. And then after they graduate, you'll get a letter saying, "You're the only reason I came to school."
Oh,
And it's like some kids,
Yeah.
but to see that, time and time again from somebody really quiet and withdrawn, it's like, this is why I'm here. This is why I showed up. This is
Yeah.
why I graduated. It's a very cool thing.
and what you're meant to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you? You have a unique role, Amanda, where it's not necessarily a scripted curriculum and you have to teach, lesson 1, 2, 3, 4. How do you go about supporting these students who may have minimal, zero English to those that, can have a great conversation, but maybe it's the academic vocabulary that they may get in the way of their success?
So to kind of echo things that have already been said, I think relationships are kind of where we start. So given that each student that I work with comes with a very diverse background in terms of their language development and things like that, you really have to kind of get to know where each student is at. And then you have to be really adaptable. And celebrate successes along the way and then build off of each success.
And now you might see kids 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Yes, I often have students for multiple years in a row. Some are okay with that. Some are a little disappointed with that. But to get to know students, a lot of times I'll have students' siblings or cousins or so really getting to see a wide view of some of our students.
Yeah, and I know in some of our leadership team meetings with our language acquisition teachers, you really do check in on them and ask the high school teacher, so do you have so and so? Oh yes, let me talk about that.
Yeah, it's great to hear from our elementary language acquisition teachers who's kind of coming our way and to kind of check in on students who have left for high school and find out that some of our students are graduating, that some have gone on to college, and just to celebrate from afar some of those exciting things.
Yeah. So when you all touched upon how important relationships are in your classroom, so you build those kind of families. We won't call them dysfunctional.
Only sometimes.
Yeah, only
sometimes. Just certain days.
Just certain days, yes. So now you've got them, right? They hopefully are feeling secure and safe to take risks in your classrooms. What types of things do you do to engage them in learning? And if they stumble and they don't, hit it out of the ballpark, how do you work with maybe some tiers maybe in first grade and maybe in high school and middle school classrooms too? How do you overcome challenges when your plans don't work? Anyone?
One thing that I really enjoy about teaching is kind of diving into what are the students thinking. So to be able to problem solve, where might the breakdown be, either in communication or understanding or their ability to express their thinking. So to kind of diagnose or be able to dive deeper into what's going on, I find that particularly enjoyable. I think being able to respond to those breakdowns and really figure out what's needed to scaffold and bring students up to the target.
So kind of what caused the stumble and how can you create and help them be more self-directed if it were to occur again?
Exactly.
Yeah. So how about first grade? Never any tears.
Oh, I was just thinking of the tears actually when you were responding, that a lot of times for first graders, when the curriculum starts to get tough, and in first grade it does for a lot of students, that there are tears and there are those moments of I can't do this, and teaching them the life skills of that grit and perseverance and you can do this, and instead of turning to tears, how can we move forward? How can we keep trying? Try things a different way.
Yeah, so lots of different, probably teaching around their emotions and how do you handle disappointment? How do you handle success? Sometimes I've seen students that overreact to being successful and want, the spotlight only on them and make their peers feel poorly. So a lot of how do we help students understand both failure and success. So I would make some assumptions in music. I play the radio. I know I'm old, but I play Spotify podcasts, keeping up with our community as well. But in band, you might see sixth graders who have never played an instrument before. Talk a little bit about their journey from, sixth grade till when you see them in high school.
Well, it's even funny when we go out and talk to students about enrolling in a band class. There's a number of them that go, "I can't be in the band class. I don't play an instrument yet." So we have to. One of the things we do is go out to talk to the elementary schools just to say, "Hey, this is for beginners. Like,
right.
This is starting at zero." And it is interesting because we have state guidelines, standards, and things, but they're pretty broad. So we have a lot of say in what we do, and I think what's unique in that at every level is that every day it very rarely goes perfectly according to plan. Just because you know what needs to get done, sometimes the kids click and they nail it in the first try. Other times you're at it for several days. But the advantage is, and I always tell the kids it's not like a math class where I have to wait a certain amount of time, that there's a test at the end. I get to hear right away. Did they get it?
Immediate.
Or did they not? And then it's up to me on that spot. Sometimes you have to go way into that toolkit and try to figure out, what's going to click for them. How are we going to make that work? And, I think that's one of the things we try to do. And I think overall, by the time they reach the high school level, is to have their own toolkit and encourage that, self-involvement and being able to pace themselves. Not every kid can still do it, but the more that happens, the higher up you go, we see more and more student leadership. Yep. We just put a new drum major in last week.
Oh, so, congrats.
Yeah, so we got we're working on getting those juniors and seniors. Seniors are moving out, so we're getting the younger groups up and just looking for those opportunities where then they're helping out, and then you kind of see it spread all the way. So, sixth grade, similar, you see a lot more hand holding, and we're going to get you there, and things tend to be more the day-to-day lessons, and then as they grow up, it's like longer and longer like units and focusing on some of those performance.
So one theme I'm hearing, besides building that relationship and that culture in the classroom where kids feel safe to take risks and to stumble, is really the ability of all three of you to make quick decisions about what each student needs individually, and then think about the whole class as well. So how did you get that good? What kind of, is it just innate? Is it practice? How are you able to, you have 20 some kids in your class, I'm sure. You see 6 hours of students, throughout your day. You see hundreds, if not thousands. But how do you navigate as a professional all of the needs of your kids? Not only academically, but, some of those other things we've talked about.
So, I guess on my end, it depends on which group it is. Something like a marching band that's got over 100 students, I have to lean more heavily on some of those student leaders, So we meet regularly. We talk about what's happening. We come up with a plan for how we're going to address those things. But even the concert bands can run, 50 to 60 kids, 40 is a little easier to deal with than 60, as you're going through that. But, I think there isn't an amount that's kind of innate that it happens. I think some people adapt quicker, but it can definitely be learned, as people are going through it. And I think it just really comes down to that experience and not being afraid to, get out there and talk to other people that have been in your shoes. And I think we as educators, as professionals, I'm sure it's in other professions as well, we're horrified of that idea because somebody might see something we're doing that's not perfect. And I know maybe it's a little bit more with our festivals and things where we're bringing in clinicians and working with kids, and we get to do our summatives on a stage in front of an audience. So, but that willingness to get out there and find out, what could I do better, or even if it's just some tips and tricks from somebody that might look at it a different way.
Yeah. So first grade, that's a big responsibility. We have new reading curriculum. So how do you learn new curriculum as well as understand the end goal by the end of first grade? And do you have colleagues and mentors that you might lean on when you may not have an answer?
For sure, especially with a brand new curriculum. After each new unit, we're talking to colleagues and how can we do that better? What do we need to tweak and change next time? And I definitely think it is something that you grow in. The first year you teach a new grade, you're never going to do it as well as, the fourth or fifth year, because you tweak all those skills that you have. And then you are able to make those in the moment changes.
Right.
Because you really understand the way that students' learning progresses in that skill.
Yeah. So Amanda, I helping students learn a second language or third language with some of our students, how do you go about knowing where they're at, what they need, triage if they're in a math class or a social studies class? How as a teacher do you navigate all of that?
Well, one thing that I think with a lot of teachers we go back to is looking at what data we have. Our students take a test each year called WIDA, which gives us an idea of proficiency levels. So kind of using data to drive instruction is always key. But I'm thankful that I don't operate alone. We've got a wonderful paraprofessionals, a great team of interventionists, wonderful teachers in our building, all who are able to offer insight and suggestions. So I think knowing that you're not just kind of in your own little island,
Right.
to kind of echo things that I've said before, but just being able to bounce ideas off of each other and work together is huge.
Yeah, so much like we want our students to belong to a community and be a team, you have your own team of partners and adults and things. So it leads me to my next question. So I was trying to think of some things that we could ask about excellent teaching, and I'm assuming that you had a role model or a mentor when you were going through school, whether that be in K-12 or university. So would you be willing to share a memory of one of your favorite teachers who maybe made a difference in your life?
I can share one.
Thanks.
My sixth grade teacher, Miss Stark, I was in a split class
Okay.
and I was pretty shy. And she had a way of getting to know what our likes were outside of school and then really incorporating those somehow in the classroom. So the Red Wings were a big thing back then, and I was in love with Steve Yzerman.
Oh, nice.
And she let me set up a table with his poster next to me in class. And it's something so silly,
Right.
but she would make connections like that with all of the students to make them just feel valued.
Yeah.
And that she was interested in what they were interested in.
Very
And
cool.
I always just remember how that made me feel.
Now, have you ever met Steve Yzerman?
I did.
Tell us about that. See, circle comes around.
Skate
How
with
did
the
you
stars.
meet him? Really?
Paid some money and went
There
and got
you
to get his autograph. Yes.
Very nice. How about you, Amanda or John? Any memories of a teacher or mentor or someone in your life that kind of made you think about, yeah, teaching might be for me?
I've been so lucky to have so many awesome teachers and band teachers in particular. But I think the person who stands out the most is probably my mom,
Yes.
who is a junior high teacher, who came home and continued to teach. And just modeled so many things, curiosity and patience and problem solving and empathy and so many of those things that are fundamental to teaching, but also to, I imagine, raising, children.
Yeah. I got a chance to meet your mom at the Oscars, and she was so thrilled to be able to have her present when it was announced and surprised. And Mr. Martz had shared that he knew the principal there, so if she needed an excuse note, he would write it. But the principal was gracious in letting your mom pop by. So
Yeah, that was really special to have her there.
very cool. So John, what about you?
I did the classic kid thing where I grew up with two educators as parents,
Yay!
but I wasn't gonna do it. 'Cause
No?
there's no way I was doing that.
So
I
you
wasn't
fought
following.
the teaching.
I fought it, but much like these guys said, being a Romeo alum myself, we had outstanding band directors, and John Reinhardt was at Romeo High School, and it was like, I knew I enjoyed working with people, but it was in the back of my head like, no, mom and dad do that. There's no way. I tried to be the rebellious, right? Didn't work. But I just saw he did so many things and brought out the best in the students, and I think that was that relationship building where a lot of times it was the kids that really pushed things to the next level, and he encouraged that, and we were able to do a lot of things through small groups and that on our own, and a lot of leadership initiatives and things like that. I had a chance to work with a lot of people, and it was like, I really like this. And I mean, I had to just kind of put my head down, mom, dad,
You did, and were they supportive of it, or we told you so?
No, they didn't go. They probably could have.
Yeah.
And they had excellent careers and did amazing things, and they were role models. So it was just fun. It was just the classic teenager thing,
right? Rebellion.
No way I'm doing that. But
hey,
but then I found out I did love it. So
yeah, you're meant to do it.
Yeah,
very cool. So anything that stands out to you in your decades, right, 10 each, in Romeo, that stands out to you, whether it be a field trip, an experience, a project, a colleague, anything that kind of stands out to you that made a difference and maybe helped you in your trajectory, or you're like, gosh, that was really memorable. Happy day. So anyone can think of anything?
I mean, I can tell you, before I taught in Romeo, I taught in another district for 10 years. And I think having that perspective in two different locations has made me a better teacher. And where, I was able to work with students from a variety of backgrounds. I had tons of bilingual students, students with various socioeconomic statuses. And it's made me a better teacher, I think, overall. And some of those things like taking students to band festival and doing that and really working with them and having them understand that that doesn't matter. Yeah. That you can be from wherever and compete at that level with anybody else if you choose to. I think that was a really cool, powerful message. And like when the kids saw they could do it, the pride that they had, and the parents and the pride that they've had, because it's not really about competition, but just getting the best version of themselves out there, regardless of the obstacles. I think that's made me a better teacher, and I've been able to bring that to Romeo with me, and then see that in some of our students here too.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with Band Festival, they're only competing against themselves.
Yeah, it's against a standard.
Exactly.
So they don't have to beat anybody.
There's no winners or losers.
But they do have to reach a certain level.
They do.
And they know that. And that's just the pride that they take in that is a very cool thing.
And sight reading still, that is so impressive. So it takes practice to be able to do that. So it's really cool. It's very... It causes anxiety when I go to any festivals and sit and watch kids with sight readings. Okay, 2 minutes, hurry up, go. Okay, let's play. And they nail it.
It's always the parents' favorite part, though, because if you've never done it, it's like magic.
Yes, it is. It's like, how did that happen? But it's a lot of behind the scenes and work and building their confidence that they can do it.
And from an educational standpoint, it's about as real of an assessment as you're going to get.
My word.
Because it's all prior knowledge and
absolutely
being able to do it on the spot when you need it.
Very much so. How about Amanda or Krista? Kind of favorite memory in your 10 years in Romeo, or something that stands out to you that helps kind of, create what excellent teaching and teachers do?
I was just thinking about, we went on a field trip last week, so it's very fresh in my mind. And with first graders, everything is so exciting, everything new. And we went to Cranbrook and they were seeing, the giant mastodon and all this stuff. And then this little boy, we went in the Galileo exhibit, and we had learned about Galileo in our new CKLA. And he had those big, huge eyes, couldn't take it all in fast enough. And I asked him, what do you think of this field trip? And he said, I think it feels like heaven.
Aww.
And I was like, well, couldn't get a better compliment than that.
Isn't that amazing to have kids see something for the first time and really be in awe?
Yes.
And those opportunities that you can create and experiences, but in your classroom as well, where a student may stumble upon something that's their strength, and maybe it's a passion that they have that they can continue with. So Amanda, I know you have some stories. Anything that stands out to you about, student success or
Unfortunately, my mind has gone completely blank. But
That's okay.
something that does kind of jump to mind, you might not expect it when thinking of like positive stories, but when we went to virtual teaching during COVID, that really stands out to me as a time when I think the community and our students and our staff really came together, and I felt coming out of that almost so like triumphant, like we did this, and so much was learned in that span of time, and the kids showed such resiliency.
As did the teachers.
Yeah.
That was a time, I like to sometimes block it out, but you
Right.
bringing it up, and we definitely had to figure out a way to make it happen.
And we did.
And we did. And I think, the collaboration and talking, going back to what we talked about earlier, just having teammates that supported each other to create lessons. I'll do this one, you do that one. I remember, sorry, John, I remember band. You have to go outside and play. You have to wear these weird masks while you're trying to play a trumpet. Yet we overcame all those challenges.
What was funny during that time is there were a few times we reached out to the kids, and Scott Hill and I we opened a Google Meet just for the kids to talk.
Yeah.
It wasn't scheduled. We just said, "Hey, do you guys want this?" And we just scheduled a time, and they did. They were so. That was at the very beginning.
Oh,
Everybody was
isolated.
completely isolated, and just kind of check in. We hadn't quite figured out how to launch everything yet.
Yeah, how do you do band over Google Meet?
And it was just funny. It was like,
Yeah.
you guys can stay as long as you want. And they did. They just sat and chatted back and forth. And we found a way to, it was the silliest thing, but we found a way to have as many people as wanted to could fill out a crossword puzzle on like New York Times crossword puzzle. You could work on it at the same
Yeah.
time. They were just happily just doing
Right.
that, just to have a social connection.
Well, it goes back to those relationships, right?
Yeah, they needed it.
They needed it. And great for you too for, sticking with it. And
I wasn't
finding
sure how many would
ways.
show up. And
Yeah.
we packed that Google Meet.
Yeah. Yes, there were capacity. We discovered that, right? And then we had to figure out how to get more people in sometimes. So we know that teaching is, for some people, it's a calling, right? You just you struggle against it, but then you say, yeah, this is for me. So we partner with universities for student teachers and pre-service teachers and things. And hopefully some of them may be listening to our podcast, or some of our education pathway kids. What advice would you have to a high school student who may be thinking or considering, should I be a teacher? What advice would you give someone that may be on the fence? So why be a teacher? What's in it?
No, I just, on my end, I think there's there's just a fulfillment in it. And that I think when people think about it as a career, they hear that some of the negative press, they hear, stories and, comments about finances, things like that. But all that is important in choosing a career, but I can look my students in the face and tell them that I really do enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
And it's when I think about all the possible things I could be doing, it's pretty amazing that I get to go in and make music with kids every day, and it's just a very, very cool feeling, and it's kind of unlike anything else. It's got its own challenges,
Yeah.
but everything does, and I think that's that part. Whether it's a calling or whether that's just part of it. You really, really, man. I had somebody tell me one time, and I'll shush here and let somebody else chime in. But I had another teacher that I was with that had her husband was a corporate lawyer, and it made lots and lots of money. But he looked at her and said, "You're the one that makes a difference." And he was very jealous of her. He's like, "You actually, he's like, what I'm doing." I'm doing well for the companies I work for,
Right.
but you're making a real difference in those kids' lives, and put it in a different perspective.
Right? It's not always about monetary compensation,
Absolutely.
and we try to do our best.
Absolutely.
But absolutely. So, Krista or Amanda?
I was just thinking that, like you were saying, the rewards for me outweigh the challenges. And yeah, it's tough sometimes, but, especially in first grade, I get to help teach kids how to read. And when you see that light bulb go off, there's nothing like it to feel like you had a part in that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And, just that you get to instill in them self-confidence and things that could change the trajectory of their whole lives.
Yeah.
It's such an honor to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it must be. The little ones scare me, by the way, like preschool K1. I had a 2-3 split one year, and I had like 7 second graders, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, we're not doing second grade again. Third and up, I'm good. But it must be exciting to see them as 5th graders, as they matriculate through Indian Hills, and just know that you had a part in helping create their, like you said, trajectory towards, being a student and being a good human and all of those things.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So Amanda, advice for someone considering teaching?
Teaching encompasses so much. We play so many roles and wear so many hats. I think there would be something appealing about teaching for everyone. If you're creative, teaching is for you. If you are, and I'm on my blank again. But anyway, this job just incorporates so much that you can really fulfill lots of different parts of yourself. And it's rewarding, and there's just, I'm too full of thoughts related to this. They're all competing.
Yeah.
But there's something for everyone in teaching. And as long as you are passionate, if you are willing to keep up, it's a fast-paced job. If you're looking for change, if you're looking for
no day the same,
momentum, right? If you're looking for variability, if you're like every moment's different. If you want your days to fly, this kind of job does that. And
if you want it to be controlled by the moon or the rain, or
right, you've got to be on your toes. So it's just it encompasses so much.
And from all three of you, I sense it's very fulfilling for you to be able to impact the lives of our young people and young adults that you work with day in and day out.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anything that you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to, or things that are on your mind that you can think of about, what makes a great teacher?
I'm just going to bounce off when you said be passionate about what you do. Kids can spot fake a mile away. So kind of going back to just some advice, if someone's out there thinking about it, is, just be real. Kids can understand, even if you're just having an off day. I think sometimes just telling them or turning it into a life lesson. I mean, I remember lost somebody very close to me a couple weeks ago, found out right in the middle of the teaching day.
Ooh.
And I didn't go into any details with them, but I just said, hey, I just found out some really rough news for me. I'm going to do the best I can, but I need, I might need your help today to get through it. And the kids respond to that kind of thing. I think just being authentic with them and allowing them to see that all that's okay too.
Well, and that we're human.
Yeah.
That, being vulnerable in front of them to say, hey, I'm going to do the best I can.
Yeah.
What a lesson for those young adults to see.
And they can see perseverance.
Yeah.
But they can also see some vulnerability.
Yeah. Well, sorry about your loss.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else?
I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude to Romeo Community Schools. The community, the students, the staff, the administration. I feel, and I imagine other teachers feel this way too, but I feel like I've been invested in and given opportunities here and given the tools for success. And speaking with teachers in other districts, that's not always the case. And I feel supported and just so thankful to be here at Romeo.
Well, we're glad you're here too, for sure. Krista, any last words?
I think the same thing. I just feel very fortunate to have such a great team here. Great administration and colleagues and support staff, and we all work together to do what's best for kids.
Yeah.
Stuff that none of us can do by ourselves, and it's just such a great place to be. Such a great sense of community that's really unique, I think, to our
It absolutely is. Absolutely. I know John had talked about being in a previous district. I've been in a couple of districts as well, and just the supportive community as a whole. It's not just the school district. I really feel that sense that everyone's here to be helpful and supportive, and we have parents doing the best they can, and when we reach out, they respond, and we all have challenges, but we tend to unite versus divide. You know, when you talked about when we had to shut down, right? Man, parents had to help too. And everyone came together, and I think you're spot on, Krista, that this is a really unique place that other districts don't enjoy. All of the community, parent support, business support, all of those cool things. So,
Absolutely.
so John, we're going to let you do a little commercial. I think we have a concert coming up at the high school.
We do tomorrow night at 7.
Yeah. So it's Romeo High School.
Romeo High School. So we have our 3 concert bands and our jazz band tomorrow night
Excellent.
at 7:00.
In the theater auditorium?
Yep, correct.
Okay. Yeah. So you had a mega band concert.
We did.
So that was a first in a while.
Yeah.
That was pretty
That was
successful.
a good night.
Yeah.
Able to hear a little bit of everything.
Man. And like kids having to move around and
Yeah, that was the funny. I think going off that idea, just people just going, wow, how did that happen? The kids knew where to go.
it didn't just
A
happen.
lot of planning. But yeah, kids did awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
And it was a cool thing to, like, again, to see the community out.
Oh my gosh, it was packed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was
Just
so
a fun night.
It was. Krista, any plans towards the end of the year? You said you went on a field trip last week, but how are we going to end up the year at Indian Hills first grade?
We have our big showcase night on Thursday this week.
Ooh, tell us more about
4
the
to 6
showcase.
p.m.
What is that?
All of the kids' artwork will be displayed. They've created books that will be sitting out, and the families can come in and
Oh, arts and artists, or
That's what we used to call it, yeah.
Very cool. So Thursday night, the 16th.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
May 16th. Holy moly! So we got a band concert Wednesday.
Yep, the
Hope
15th.
People plan to attend that, and then we have Indian Hills. Perfect. Amanda, how does the year end with you and your students at Romeo Middle?
We're just trying to end the year strong and
Yeah.
wrap up a positive year and set our sights on what comes next. 8th graders are kind of celebrating their time in middle school with a trip to CJ Barrymore.
Oh, fun.
Which
Do you
has
get
been
to go as a chaperone?
I don't know if I will be or not yet.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I'm scheduled to go, but
Okay.
you know, things
happen.
always in it
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
And we're celebrating our students' multilingual backgrounds. We're offering our 7th and 8th graders a chance to earn high school credit by taking a placement test.
Awesome.
So kind of setting our students up for success and celebrating what they come to our school with already.
Build off their strengths.
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
So we're, a number of things, but we're just kind of hoping to end the year strong and get ready for next year.
Yeah, and I was there this morning. I think there's some R awards coming that teams are,
yes.
right? There'll be some celebrations.
Yeah,
obviously,
celebrating
to end the
individual
year.
students for a number of different reasons students
Right.
are awarded.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, anything else for the good of the group?
I don't think so.
Okay. If not, I'll sign off with happy day.
Happy day.
happy day.
Absolutely. Happy day.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for hosting, and a special thanks to our Teachers of the Year, John Phillips, Amanda Mazzio, and Krista Miller. You each, in your own unique ways, serve as inspirations for excellence in teaching, not just in our district, but across the state. Up next, we will learn more about how our students lead, this time at the elementary level. You won't want to miss hearing from these young leaders on how they make a difference in their school communities and beyond. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week to keep up with Romeo Community Schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.